tonight, because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America.
He has an 8-year plan for this country, and by the 8th year, we will be radically different than we were in the first year, but also radically different than we are right now.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
We've got a battle to undo the damage he's done in the first 6 years. But before that, we have to battle to stop him from completing the process of change over the next 2 years.
And I know they're gearing up for a fight as we speak. My message to them is this: so am I.
Dick, I travel the country meeting with people. People are always handing me something. You got to read this, you got to read that. Somebody handed me Power Grab. I said, Dick Morris, let me read it. Especially Obama's dangerous plan for a one-party nation. What hit me the most is the last sentence. This book is designed to provide ammunition for the forces who battle for change. Aim well and keep firing. Has Obama successfully, fundamentally changed America to where now I'm at the point of where I've got to be fighting for change to get it back to the way it used to be?
Oh yes, of course. Of course he's changed it fundamentally. The problem is that it's, from his point of view, it's only half changed. He wants to go with the rest of the distance. And he's not gambling that he's going to be able to do that after 2017. He wants to do it in the last 2 years of his administration. His real goal is to change this country so fundamentally that it is always going to be run by the left wing of the Democratic Party. And that is a power grab.
To go off the title, Obama's on a total power grab. How is he getting away with this?
Well, part of it is that he's playing chess and everybody else is playing checkers. We're impeded by the fact that we have a fundamental lack of understanding of Obama's motivation. In a sense, we take him at his word, that he wants to socialize medicine, that he wants to redistribute income, that he wants to empower the poor, that he wants to disempower the United States, and so forth. He does want all those things, but they're just means to an end. The end is to assure that the United States becomes a fundamentally different country with a left-wing majority dominated by the Democratic Party's left wing.
If you've been successful, you didn't get there on your own.
The United States is the only country in the world right now that really has a pro-democracy, pro-capitalist, built-in majority in the country. And it alone stands as the obstacle to the entire world going in the direction of the left and redistribution and all of that. He wants to change America to eliminate that impediment, in his view, to global change. And all of his policies, all of his programs are directed toward that objective.
We will get there. I promise you, we as a people will get there.
And it's Barack Obama's mission to stop the United States from becoming the land of opportunity where capitalists and conservatives and people that seek opportunity and people that are entrepreneurial can flee so that they can avoid socialism.
If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
How are you able to see all this?
I think that my experience with President Clinton gave me kind of a broader historic view of what was going on. President Clinton once told me, Democrats and Republicans agree about what to do to help the poor. They disagree in that the Democrats want entitlements to the middle class. And he said the reason they do is that they feel that they can never protect the entitlements for the poor unless the middle class share in it. Republicans don't want the middle class, in effect, to go on welfare because they want it to remain entrepreneurial and independent and growing. And Democrats don't want that because then they'll lose their majority.
In the next segment, Dick Morris reveals President Obama's plan to use illegal immigration to create a one-party nation. Stay tuned to make sure you get your copy of Dick Morris' bestseller, Power Grab, available at bookstores everywhere, or check out our free offer at newsmax.com/power. You're watching a Newsmax special with Dick Morris about his newest bestseller, Power Grab, Obama's dangerous plan for a one-party nation.
You go pretty deep into immigration, a topic I'm very, very passionate about. It's about 7:30 p.m. down here in South Texas. Right now, there are Border Patrol in that preserve trying to apprehend the families that are coming across. Today, during the day, on this whole long dirt pan road, you had Border Patrol truck after Border Patrol truck after Border Patrol truck. There's nobody here now when it matters most, when most of the crossings happen.
Obama planned it. He knew that if he advertised amnesty, that half of Central America would show up and want to get into the United States. And then he placed them throughout the United States so that they really can never be evicted. And even when they are evicted, it's in absentia, and the court order is meaningless because we can't find them.
Now he's granted this amnesty, we should expect another surge, and then another surge after that. I mean, it's just, he has no plan of stopping this.
Well, not only no plan to stop it, he wants to encourage it. It's a vital part of his strategy. He wants to create a kind of ghost army to take over the United States by voting. What he wants to do is to let millions of illegal immigrants into the United States, earn their everlasting support by granting them amnesty and green cards so that they can stay here, and then signing them up to vote illegally.
And I've got to have you talk to your constituents and your communities, and you've got to get them out to vote. You already know how powerful the Latino vote can be. In 2012, Latinos voted in record numbers. The next day, even Sean Hannity changed his mind and decided immigration reform was a good idea.
The Justice Department sent a message to all voter registrars throughout the country saying you may not purge the voting rolls of people who haven't voted or haven't answered postcards unless they failed to do so for 4 years, which means that we have 3 or 4 million dead people on the voting rolls, and we have 20 or 30 million people who've moved on the voting rolls in their old location. So what he does is he gets the illegal immigrants to go to the states where the people have left and vote in their name. Well, how can they get away with it? Well, there's no photo ID required. North Carolina was part of a 26-state study, and it's the first one to have the results published, where they looked at North Carolina voters and compared them with the voters in the other 25 states that participated. And they found 35,000 people who voted in North Carolina, where someone with the same first and last name and birth date voted in another place in that election, in another state. And if they'd done the whole country, blue states didn't participate, you probably would have been up to 60 or 70,000 people, enough to carry North Carolina.
You don't have to wait until November the 6th to cast your ballot. You can vote early and become one of the very first people to help move our country forward. In fact, we know that early votes provided the difference between winning and losing in key battleground states in 2008. So, North Carolina, let's get started. Go to gottavote.com today to find out when and where you can vote early for Barack.
And when states have tried to pass photo ID, he's actually gone to court to stop them from doing it.
We are here to announce that the Justice Department will file suit later today against the state of North Carolina to challenge portions of that state's highly restrictive new voting law.
Then, to make it easier, he has now opened refugee offices in Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, where people can, without leaving their homes, apply to come into the United States legally. And he's had the United Nations insist that the United States emit at least 100,000 and probably more of these refugees into the U.S. And then he reached out and brought 90,000 Somalians in 2 months ago, 100,000 Iraqis. He just allowed 100,000 Syrians to come in. This is all part of recruiting for his ghost army.
All these people coming in and continuing to come in is detrimental to the American worker.
That's part of an effort on his part to lower and freeze the wages of lower income Americans, because he wants to force them out of the world of work and into the world of welfare.
In the next segment, Dick Morris reveals how the massive increase of entitlement programs is helping President Obama put the Republican Party out of business and creating a one-party state. Stay tuned to make sure you get your copy of Dick Morris' bestseller, Power Grab, available at bookstores everywhere, or check out our free offer at newsmax.com/power. You're watching a Newsmax special with Dick Morris about his newest bestseller, Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation.
I just want a job. That's it. You got hard-working people out here.
You mean you don't want to collect welfare?
No,
Why? Why not?
it's not a living. I like honest living.
Welfare.
When someone's working and employed, they're much more likely to vote Republican. But when they're on entitlements, they're going to go to the polls to vote to defend their own entitlements. Now, when Obama took office, a quarter of the United States was on welfare, basically. Now 35% is on it. And by welfare, I mean one of the 77 programs, which are means-tested programs that the federal government runs. The biggest are Medicaid and food stamps and housing assistance and nutrition assistance and a whole range of those programs. There are 103 million Americans right now who get means-tested welfare, and there are 110 million Americans who work full-time. When those lines cross and more people are looking for their monthly welfare check rather than their weekly paycheck, then he owns this country. And his goal is to do that by freezing and impeding wage growth among lower middle-income Americans, and at the same time expanding dramatically enrollment in entitlement welfare means-tested programs. And that's why, under President Clinton, 45% of the wage growth went to the top 1%. Under President Bush, 65% went to the top 1%. Under Obama, 95% has gone to the top 1%. The way he's holding down incomes of the average American is by illegal immigration. He understands that when you have 10 or 12 million people coming into the United States who are willing to work for very little money, the American citizen landscaper, the American citizen construction contractor can't increase their wages. They can't charge more. They have to begin cutting back. Otherwise, their jobs will be taken by the illegal immigrants.
I had 25 tax-paying American citizens working for me. The builders that used to hire me and my guys come up here to get the cheap labor, and they cut me right out of the picture. Right. Now my tax-paying American citizens aren't paying the bills anymore. Who's paying the bills? These guys? They get their checks and they send it back home. They're building brand new houses at home, and we get stuck with the bill. 40 people to a house, they're paying the right taxes. When 10 kids are coming from one house, they're only paying one tax bill. How is that helping our country out?
It's a deliberate effort to deprive the lower middle income people of jobs and of wages and to force them onto welfare.
How does it make you feel when you have to deposit, when you have to use that welfare check?
It's degrading. I lost all respect. My wife don't respect me no more because I don't have a job.
Well, obviously, there are a lot of folks still out of work or either underemployed and want to do better. We know that there's a lot more people looking for work than there are jobs to fill.
I'm applying for jobs that I never anticipated looking for before.
How long have you been looking for a job?
I've been looking for a job for the past year.
What kind of a job?
Anything available.
No jobs available. I haven't been able to find any, and I was looking earnestly for 2 years.
What do you think is going to happen if 11 million illegal immigrants are now allowed to compete for the same jobs?
Bringing more immigrants in is going to make it worse than it already is.
I'm all about us making it over here first before we can take care of someone else. I think that's the important thing.
I've been seeing a lot of companies hiring illegal immigrants, paying them off the books cash, and they don't even look toward us because they can make more money for themselves and pay all these immigrants less money.
Go to an unemployment agency or office and see what's all the people that be standing outside.
So Wendy's, you couldn't get a job at Wendy's?
No, I got 13 years in it. The manager told me I was overqualified to take his job. I told him I didn't want his job, I wanted a job.
If the funds run out for unemployment and welfare and stuff of that nature, what are you folks going to do?
We'll be out on the streets.
We'll be out on the streets and they'll take my
They're going to have more issues with the homeless now than they have.
Yeah. I'll be out on the street with my 12-year-old boy in a truck.
He also has dramatically expanded eligibility for entitlements. For example, disability benefits. There are 5 million more Americans now on disability than there were when he took office. All of the increase has been back pain or psychological conditions. And Obama eliminated the requirement of a medical examination or even medical records. You just come in and you say, I'm crazy, I'm very upset, I'm anxiety-ridden, I can't sleep, I'm depressed, and they grant you the disability status. On Medicaid, most states said, if you're poor, we'll give you Medicaid. If you're above poverty, we won't. Obama came in and made it a third above the poverty level. The Supreme Court blocked him from requiring that, but half of the country has accepted it voluntarily. That added 8 million new people to the Medicaid rolls.
In the next segment, Dick Morris argues that Obamacare is more than just a health care system. It's a political tool. Stay tuned. Make sure to get your copy of Dick Morris' bestseller, Power Grab, available at bookstores everywhere. Or check out our free offer at newsmax.com/power. You're watching a Newsmax special with Dick Morris about his newest bestseller, Power Grab, Obama's dangerous plan for a one-party nation.
Obamacare.
Every left-wing government has one fundamental problem. It's easy for them to get the support of the poor because they give out benefits. The problem is, how do they get the support of the working middle class? How do they get the support of people who are self-employed or employed by good employers and earning good wages and doing just fine? If you're over 21 and you're under 65 and you've got a good job, you don't need the government. So how do we make government relevant to those people in such a way that they are dependent on the Democratic Party and on big government? There's only one way to do it: take over the healthcare system.
One of the things you and I both know is that when you come to healthcare, there's no more personal and intimate decision for people. I mean, this is something that people really care about. And frankly, the devil you know is always better than the devil you don't know.
So what they did was that they took people that were currently insured, had good insurance, enjoyed the insurance, could afford it, paid it themselves, and told them, nope, your policy is inadequate. And they're saying that you have to have the soup to nuts insurance. And you say, well, wait a minute, I don't need it. He says, that doesn't matter. I can't afford it. He says, well, I'll give you a subsidy. I'll give you a tax credit, which will make it possible for you to afford it. So in one stroke, he's already taken about 5 million people away from self-supporting, self-sustaining health insurance that they can afford and forced them onto subsidies and making them dependent on the government for their health insurance. And that's going to grow to 10 million, 15, and 20 million. And you add those people to the ranks of the poor who he's already got by welfare and means-tested entitlements, and it becomes a solid, stable majority for the Democratic Party and for the left. That's why, for example, in Britain they can't get rid of socialized medicine. Everybody moans about the system, but they become so dependent on the government they can't even imagine the possibility of becoming unentangled. And Obama's goal in Obamacare is to make the middle class dependent on government largesse.
I'm one of the people who lost his health insurance. My family lost our health insurance because of Obamacare. So why?
Well, the Obama administration is doing everything it can to raise the rates on people like your son so that they are dependent on government subsidies in order to get the health insurance. I'll give you an example. It costs 1/5 as much to insure your son as it does to insure a person in their 60s. But insurers are only allowed to charge 1/3 as much. So the rates for young people are much higher than they ought to be. And that is to force them to become dependent on government subsidies so they can't possibly leave the government healthcare system.
Let me explain how this works using my own company. I used to have 250 employees. But now, because Obamacare is not given to anybody but legal U.S. citizens or legal aliens, the illegal aliens, the 5 million, or I think more like 10 million, who just got the work permits from President Obama, I can now hire them legally and rid of my U.S. citizen employees and save myself the $1 million.
In the next segment, Dick Morris explains that President Obama has a real agenda to make America a one-party state. Stay tuned. Make sure you get your copy of Dick Morris' bestseller, Power Grab, available at bookstores everywhere. or check out your free offer at newsmax.com/power. You're watching a Newsmax special with Dick Morris about its newest bestseller, Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation.
You said that line between those who are working and those who are on welfare is starting to close. And then when it switches, he owns the country. So then what he's sort of doing, he's teeing it up for Hillary.
Think California. Think New York. No Republican need apply in any of those states. He wants to make the United States like that. Look at Texas. It's going from a red state and increasingly going to be a blue state. Not because any Texan is changing his mind, but because of the flow of illegal immigration coming into the United States. Florida, with the same result, is also switching gradually. And that's all not the product of Americans changing their opinions, which is a good way to do it, but instead it's by stacking the deck and packing the electorate.
Major concern, Obama trying to bypass the Electoral College.
Yes, Obama wants the presidency to be decided based on the national popular vote, so he can steal it. So he wants to bypass the Electoral College, but he doesn't want to amend the Constitution because he knows he'll never get 3/4 of the states to go with it. So what he's done is he's persuaded 11 states with 165 electoral votes among them. They've all passed laws that say that the winner of our state's electoral votes will not be the person that carried our state, but the person that carried the national popular vote. And that these laws will take effect when 271 votes worth of states have ratified it. So when that happens, those 271 votes worth of states will vote for the winner of the national popular vote, irrespective of how the voters in their state voted. So North Carolina, for example, could go Republican, but it would vote Democrat if a Democrat wins the national popular vote. And he's trying to do this as an end run, and he's already got 165 of the 271 votes that he needs.
So if Hillary is elected president in 2016, it's going to be impossible to get those lines back. Is every major city eventually going to look like Detroit?
I think the United States will look like Detroit. And bear in mind, Detroit didn't happen in one moment. It was a 70-year process. And that was 70 years of political power for the left, holding on to tax revenue, spending it as they wish. And after 50 or 60 or 70 years, it became time to pay the piper. The left is very good at income distribution. It's very bad at wealth creation. But after a while, you have enough wealth and you live it off it for a while. You run it into the ground and then you abandon them. Well, that's really what he's doing with the United States.
What happened to this neighborhood?
This block was filled with lots of people, you know, neighbors everywhere. You know, it just looked like a ghost town now.
Are there a lot of shootings?
You hear them.
Yeah.
You hear them.
Yeah? Has it just become second nature at this point?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
In the next segment, Dick Morris talks about the real reasons President Obama is bypassing Congress and using executive orders to create his one-party nation. Stay tuned. Make sure you get your copy of Dick Morris' bestseller, Power Grab, available at bookstores everywhere, or check out our free offer at newsmax.com/power. You're watching a Newsmax special with Dick Morris about its newest bestseller, Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation.
My fellow Americans, tonight I'd like to talk with you about immigration. When I took office, I committed to fixing this broken immigration system, and I began by doing what I could to secure our borders. Meanwhile, I worked with Congress on a comprehensive fix, and last year, 68 Democrats, Republicans, and independents came together to pass a bipartisan bill in the Senate. It wasn't perfect. It was a compromise. But for a year and a half now, Republican leaders in the House have refused to allow that simple vote. Now, I continue to believe that the best way to solve this problem is by working together to pass that kind of common sense law. But until that happens, there are actions I have the legal authority to take as president, the same kinds of actions taken by Democratic and Republican presidents before me, that will help make our immigration system more fair and more just. Tonight, I'm announcing those actions.
What is the deal with Obama and all of his executive orders?
We are not just going to be waiting for legislation in order to make sure that we're providing Americans the kind of help that they need. I've got a pen and I've got a phone, and I can use that pen to sign executive orders and take executive actions and administrative actions that move the ball forward.
We all assume that when Obama issues these executive orders, that what he's trying to do is to implement his policies without congressional approval. And of course, that's a motivation. But the main motivation is fundamentally to change the Constitution by practice, to transfer power from the legislative branch to the executive branch, to make us more like Britain and less like the United States. And the reason he does is that he realizes that the left will win general elections for president routinely, especially if we permit him to complete this process of addicting America to entitlements and flooding the nation with illegal immigrants. So it makes sense to transfer power from the legislative branch, which the Democrats may not always control, to the presidency, which they hope they always will be able to control.
Dick, Obama seems to be obsessed with the environment. Why?
This is the way that an authoritarian government becomes a totalitarian government. One that dominates the governing structure becomes one that dominates your entire life. And they do so in the name of climate change and global warming. Years ago in the 1960s, the Club of Rome was formed. There was an organization that still exists that has a statutory 100-person membership, and it's composed of most of the major former leaders of the world. And their goal is global governance. And they said that the only way you can achieve global governance is by creating a global problem that can only be solved by a global solution that overcomes national boundaries, because the world has to act together. And they originally thought overpopulation would be it, but it turned out that was not a problem, so they seized on climate change. Now, the fact of climate change is for 17 years, there's been no climate change in the world. It's been absolutely flat. Went up a lot of increase in warming in the 80s and 90s, but since 1997, none. So it's really becoming increasingly a phony issue. But nevertheless, they're using it to try to regiment the world. And they're using a blueprint that was developed in 1992 at the Treaty of Rio, the Rio de Janeiro Conference on global environmental issues. And they issued something called Agenda 21, which was a series of goals for environmental land use, utility regulation, and all other aspects of our lives that would move against climate change. Obama's environmental regulations are designed to get into our everyday life. For example, electrical meters. Obama wants to replace your electric meter that says how much electricity did you use with what they call a smart meter. And in fact, in California, they require smart meters. And homeowners are often resistant. And when they're out, the company will come in and put in a smart meter in their home.
What's the difference?
A smart meter regulates where you're using the electricity and when you're using it. It says which room of your house, which socket in your house is using electricity, at what time of day, and what for. And it will lead to pricing of utility rates to tell people when they can and when they can't use their electricity. But there's a more important thing that lies behind all of this. Obama wants to control American business. The only way to do that is by controlling their energy output. If Obama has his way, every manufacturing company, every energy producing company will need the government's permission to operate. And the idea is that therefore the federal government can use that power to regulate every aspect of our industrial society. Every power plant, every manufacturing product, every business, every school, every home, by using the power to regulate electricity to require them to conform to the Agenda 21 requisite that he's set up.
In the next segment, Dick Morris says the internet is key to ending political debate in America. and why Obama's policies threaten our freedoms. Stay tuned. Make sure to get your copy of Dick Morris bestseller Power Grab, available at bookstores everywhere, or check out our free offer at newsmax.com/power. You're watching a Newsmax special with Dick Morris about his newest bestseller, Power Grab, Obama's dangerous plan for a one-party nation.
Dick, how is Obama trying to control the internet?
Well, the internet is the last piece of freedom we really have. It's not controlled by the media, it's not controlled by the government, and Obama is really attacking it in a two-pronged offensive. Using the excuse of net neutrality, Obama is trying to give the FCC the same power to regulate the internet that we now have to regulate telephone companies.
I'm asking the FCC to reclassify internet service under Title II of a law known as the Telecommunications Act. In plain English, I'm asking them to recognize that for most Americans, the internet has become an essential part of everyday communication and everyday life.
What he wants to do is to have the FCC stop internet companies from charging certain websites more for faster service, which really means the internet companies, the servers, can't invest money to give those websites extra speed because they can't recoup it from the website. He wants everybody to have the same slow-speed internet. And he's using that as an excuse to grant the FCC power to regulate the internet, which has until now been basically unregulated. The other pincer is the United Nations.
Mr. President, Secretary General, fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we come together at a crossroad.
What he's doing is taking control of the internet away from the group that's called the Commission on Internet Names, which is under the Department of Commerce in the US, which is a group of techies who run the internet, not political, no agenda. They just try to make it work. And the Department of Commerce is terminating their contract and leaving up in the air now who will actually govern the internet. And there was a big conference held last month, or a few months ago, where the government and academics and techies and free speech advocates all got together to try to figure out how to regulate the internet. And Russia and China insisted on a major role for governments in control of the internet.
This doesn't make sense to me at all. Yeah, I mean, the internet was hatched in the United States, and the Department of Commerce subcontracted it to ICANN. We're giving that away. International pressure to do so. It's a terrible idea. I have no idea why we would be giving this away.
Obama is afraid of the internet, as all totalitarian governments are, as all authoritarian governments. He's cowed the media into doing what he wants, and now he wants to control the internet, so it does too.
This is more about preventing a problem than it is about fixing an existing problem for consumers?
Absolutely. It's about saying, look, there's every possibility of problems developing, and we want to stop that before it happens. And I think that's an absolutely fair thing to say.
It almost seems like the media is buying into his narrative, that they're sort of bowing down to him in a sense that says, all right, you know what, we're going to flow with this. Is it because the media now has shifted so liberal that he's not being held accountable whatsoever? Because that's what most people will say, that he's not being held accountable.
I think that the media certainly is biased toward the left, but I don't really think that's an excuse. We have other media outlets that are conservative. Most of us get our news from the internet that really is an amalgam of stuff. There's a lot of non-traditional media that's explaining what Obama is doing and what his actions are. We just don't draw the conclusion. We're busy fighting the symptom while he's busy administering the virus. There's a deliberate effort here to keep interest rates at zero. Now, with zero interest rates, you can have saved $1 million over the course of your working life, but it does you no good because you put it in the bank and you get 0.25% interest. What the hell is that going to do for you? So the only way that you can retire is through the government paying for you with pensions that are either private or public, but if they're private, they're government guaranteed, or Social Security. He's eliminated the concept of privately funded retirement by having zero interest rates.
In the next segment, Dick Morris argues that the Obama administration is using intimidation tactics against his political enemies to silence them. Stay tuned. Make sure to get your copy of Dick Morris' bestseller, Power Grab, available at bookstores everywhere, or check out our free offer at newsmax.com/power. You're watching a Newsmax special with Dick Morris about his newest bestseller, Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation.
I have no more campaigns to run. My only agenda, I know because I won both of them.
Intimidation.
A big part of the intimidation effort has been directed against Republican candidates themselves. Harry Reid, on the floor of the U.S. Senate, charged that Romney had not paid income taxes for 10 years.
Thousands of families making more than $1 million a year pay nothing in federal income taxes. Is Mitt Romney among those? We'll never know, since he refuses to release his tax returns.
That forced Romney to release the last 2 years of his tax returns that showed that he'd paid a healthy percentage of his income in taxes. And he released summaries for the other 8 years that showed that he'd paid a lot each of those years. So Harry Reid's charges were totally false. But how did he get the information? How did he get an input on that? There have been dozens of instances of targeted IRS enforcement aimed at Republican candidates for Senate and House throughout the United States. So this process of intimidation of conservatives, of targeting their donors, of auditing the people that give them money, of targeting the groups that receive the money, is part of an effort to silence the political opposition and advance his power grab for a one-party nation.
Dick, why did you and your wife, Eileen, write Power Grab?
We wrote it because people do not understand what Obama's objectives are. And unless we understand those objectives and how he plans to get to them, we can't stop him.
People like myself who absolutely love the country, we have kids, we see it's going in the wrong direction. What can we do to prevent this sort of power grab, not only from Obama, but from maybe Hillary or another Democrat?
We have 2 years left in Obama's term, and thank God we now have control of the Senate. That makes it possible for us to wage a guerrilla war against Obama's power grab. And in each of the sections of this book, we outline exactly what we need to do using our control over Congress, using lawsuits in the courts, using state governments to stop his power grabs from taking place. There are over 100 separate actions that we recommend here that people can take and that the Congress can take to fight Obama. You can't just pass one law to do it. You need to nibble at it, you need to attack it in really a guerrilla warfare, a step-by-step process to attack his programs and to stop them from consolidating power in the liberal wing of the Democratic Party.
Can he be stopped?
Yes, Obama can definitely be stopped because we now control the Senate. But it's going to take a knowledge of what he's trying to do and a game plan. And Eileen and I wrote this book to provide a blueprint for Congress and citizen activists on how to stop his power grab.
You've just watched the Newsmax special Power Grab, based on Dick Morris's #1 bestseller, Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation. Power Grab is available at bookstores everywhere, or get our free offer at newsmax.com/power. Make sure you get your copy of Power Grab today.
There's been billions of dollars spent making people scared and worried about this stuff. And rather than try to disabuse people of every single bit of misinformation, that's been out there. What we're saying is just look for yourself. Take a look at it, and you will discover that this is a good deal for you.